Hello, everyone watching at home. You're with Adelaide Eternal. We are back with Beckett, Wolfe, and myself, Sarven McLinton, to discuss the recent Masters 7-point Highlander event. Beckett, I'll turn over to you. You tell us a little bit about what this weekend's all about and what we typically do when we go interstate.
Well, it's a lot of fun, isn't it? I mean, we've been going for, I reckon, close to a decade now. And GameSpot always hosted at various different places, but they've put on another good event and it's always a lot of fun. Unfortunately, they didn't do vintage this year, but for me and for a lot of others, the main thing is Highlander. And yeah, we drove down, carpooled with Socrates and just we sort of did it under the guise of going to visit family. Sock's got family in Victoria, and so do I. But I can just remember 6 a.m. getting up to go to the bathroom. Beckett, Beckett, magic.
Sucks. He's eager. He doesn't need to sleep.
That's right. So
It's a
just
bit of a tradition, isn't it?
every spare waking moment, and we met some guys over there. We went out to dinner with one of the guys that we met, Olivier, in Melbourne, and that's all part of it, just engaging with community face to face. I was complaining about how paper magic you don't get it's not as good as Moto because the timer is a bit I like the chess clock timer on Moto, but interacting, socializing, meeting new people, that's a huge part of it as well. So it's a lot of fun for me.
Nice. Well, for those who are not familiar with what we're going to do now, we're essentially just going to do a little bit of an analysis of the performance of decks and what went well, what went not so well, card choices, just general discussion. Let you in a little bit on what the Adelaide Eternal team does when we finish up with events and. Hopefully that will also assist you with your own deck planning. But we're specifically going to focus today on Highlander. Now, this might be to the chagrin of some of our international listeners, but remember that many of the principles that we're talking about are applicable in multiple formats as well. We just like to focus on Highlander for this one because there were some really good results. No spoilers, right? Well, I mean, they probably could see a tournament report, right? It's very topical for the Australian scene. It's our longest running, Australian specific scene that has now started to branch out internationally. We have
A
players,
lot of United States players are
yeah,
enjoying it. Yeah.
all over the place, all over the world, which is really, really cool seeing 7-point Highlander get out there. So to kind of point you in this direction of a tournament report that I just mentioned. So if you haven't already done so, do go and check out the 7-point Highlander official webpage. You can look here under Highlander results. There's a recent event results tab. And in recent events, you'll be able to see different events that take place all over the country, and they all vary in size. So let's look at Eternal Masters, which was held in Victoria, one of the states in Australia. So this report is by Beckett. We won't rehash what's going on here. Feel free to go and have a read of it. It's got some blow-by-blow discussion, but the main thing is we will talk about the top 8 a little bit. So Beckett made the top 8, and Socrates Stavropoulos also in the top 8, and Zach as well was in the top 8. So basically 3 of the, what is it? 100% of the Adelaide players who went.
100%. It was a great result.
Nice. That's a good result. Unfortunately, the 3 of them did not break into the semi-finals.
No, we all lost.
Yeah, I know. We had three chances there, but that the main thing here is that we can see that out of these top 8, this is a really diverse top 8. There's been a lot of doom and gloom about the format and the metagame, and I think that tends to rear its head in state-specific events. When you don't have all the states coming together in your local metagame will go a certain way, and then people tend to fight against that metagame with the other rock paper scissors in the scenario. And it's may not lend itself to diversity, but as soon as we go interstate, we can see that people are bringing their tech from their local region, which is really sweet. So let's talk about what you chose to sleeve up and why. Let's have a look at Beckett's list. So this is kind of the continual evolution of the list that we've talked about quite a bit in the previous channel discussion. This principle of like finding the things that are broken and sticking them all in one deck and just playing. You know, don't think too much about your choices. Play whatever's broken. And in that, Companion's pretty broken, so playing Gigantha, and then playing the initiative, and then doing things that support that initiative, like fast mana. So we've kind of seen that evolve, and Beckett's version of the list that he took to the event. Why don't you tell us about? All right.
So I think most of the deck is relatively the same as the last time.
Yeah,
Some
you
of the
want to have a look at the
additions.
link below if you want to see the original deck tech chat in round 1 of Beckett's Bluebell Open top 8 performance.
Yeah, so I think the addition we made was Eagles of the North, which it looked ugly when I put it in because the castable aspect of it is just a lot worse than Oliphant, Ent, and Troll. But I think as you discussed, I mean, it's probably it's like 8% of the time, I reckon, less than 10% of the time you're actually casting it. And when you are, you're just happy to be able to have had a castable that would have otherwise been a land. It's kind of like playing Manland. So it's a Manland that lets you play around Blood Moon is one way to look at it. And it just feels good being able to cast it. I did actually cast hard cast an Eagles in the event, and the +1/0 actually made a difference.
It's good.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, I
think
think
it just did 3 extra damage. I mean,
exactly. You know, the first strike is very relevant in mid-range stalls, and the thing that people forget is when they're looking at it, and this is kind of letting you in on that behind the curtain of that Adelaide Eternal discussions that we're all bantering about, thinking about card choices. The Eagles, it doesn't really matter what its stats are. It's not a land. So,
yeah.
like, if you think about Gigantha, people really weren't very high on Gigantha early, and that's obviously because Lutri and so on took a lot of the show, thinking about, oh, let's copy really powerful spells.
Well, it just fits into Highlander so easily,
So
right?
easily, exactly. And then you got like Lurus and thinking, oh, okay, deck building restriction, but if my deck's already going that way, that's great. And then even like Kahira saw a little bit of play because Control could just eschew Snapcaster Mage, gain a point back, and use it elsewhere, and then have a free companion in the sideboard. But Gigantha didn't get much attention. So we've really been pushing Gigantha as a really, really good companion, and it doesn't really matter that it's an 8 mana 5/5. It's irrelevant. It's just one thick boy, right?
Well, it's one thick boy, and it is better than 8 mana 5/5 because it can be split over 2 turns. So I think most of the time I'm doing the 3 mana put into hand when I've got nothing else to do. And you can kind of treat it as a divination because you're spending 3 mana to draw a card, like get an extra card advantage into your hand. And divination's not great, but if you're doing nothing else, yeah, I'll take a divination.
Yeah.
And then also specifically Gigantha's just so good against Moon. And then, I mean, we're talking about a 5-color list here. What's the first thing you think when you think about a 5-color list in any format, let alone Highlander? You think about Blood Moon.
Yeah, we've been really passionate about this. Not going. There's lots of choices you can make in this deck. If Gigantha wasn't your companion, you would really want to play Solitude, and lots of these Fury, lots of these cards, and you might even go down to Questing Beast, or as you start to think about the things you want to play, you end up making your deck worse against Blood Moon, and it's almost like Gigantha forces you to think about it, and you go, oh, wait a second, wait, there's actually a perk here not just being able to play Gigantha, but also being insulated against Blood Moon. And then you play your four cycling creatures for colorless to get your basics. Then you have late game under Blood Moon. If you really are locked out, play Gigantha, and Gigantha threatens to be able to unlock your whole hand. And then you've just got, eight mana dorks, creatures that just tap for mana.
The mana dorks are good as well because I mean, they're going to come down before a Blood Moon. And yes, control can spot remove them, but then that's just adding layers to what the Moon deck has to be able to achieve to lock you out. And I think that's the key word, lock. And I found Blood Moon does affect me, but I never got pushed out of a game where I'm just sitting there with all these great spells in hand. I'm like, oh, well, I can't cast that. Well, I can't cast that. I mean, it turned my Leyline Binding into a 4 mana spell at one point. It's like, okay, yeah, that affected me, but you lost tempo by casting a 3-drop that doesn't impact the board.
You're
So
still casting spells. You are still engaging,
exactly,
and they have spent 3 mana to do essentially a little speed bump. It's not a lock, and this is kind of one of the key differences between the Adelaide Eternal versions of this list and the broader Domain Initiative decks, which tend to be full on 4-color. If you look at their statistics with the percentages of the colors, there'll be 4 colors all pretty equally balanced, and then the 5th color is like a couple of cards in the sideboard. Whereas we are pretty much Naya splash a 4th color, and you could do that any other way. It could be Jund splash white. The key is just to try and be insulated against Blood Moon, still be really greedy because you can play that 4th color, you can stretch that 4th color, but if you prevent the Blood Moon or the Blood Moon does resolve, you still just keep playing the game, and you're aggressive. The way that Drew Carter describes the way that we're building this deck is it's technically an aggro deck, right? It looks like mid-range and it looks like you want to get value, but there's a lot of cards in here that do not get value. And people will automatically think, oh, yeah, mid-range generates value. But we've got cards like Thalia. We've got cards like Tarmogoyf. We've got cards like Anointed Peacekeeper. Like, these cards do not generate value. They are technically aggressive. They're just trying to beat down. I take it Anointed Peacekeeper is our not so secret tech. I haven't seen anyone else on it, but we're really high on it. Like all that internal team, like Anointed Peacekeeper, play this card.
It just always feels good because you get to look at their hand before you name. So I guess compare it to a Revoker, Phyrexian Revoker. I mean, it's Revoker was a sideboard card from yesteryear, main boardable in sort of artifact decks. This guy's punchy. He's got such a great body, 3/3 vigilance, and you get to see the hand, and it completely shuts down some important cards, and it always ruins their curve.
Yeah,
because if they've got a hand that's just spot removal and decent spells, you can name the spot removal, and then they're always going to be taxed on it because they're going to spot remove the Peacekeeper.
Yeah, based on all of the so many lines of text, it will, like you said, always affect them. That's the key. Like, so many times you have to make a choice, and then sometimes you miss or something, but this will fundamentally always affect them. And at the very least, like worst case scenario, you've played this card, you look at their hand and it's 2 lands, and you're like, okay, I don't need to name those lands. I can just name the thing I'm the most afraid of that you could possibly top deck. But even then, if you look at their hands as 2 lands, you go, okay, yeah, I can just swing for the fences,
Well, that's like going back to a pithing needle sort of era where you just name something that you're scared of. Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of times where that's it's easy to do.
And we're talking fail case here. Like the best case scenario is your opponent thinks they're going to win because they're going to play Bombardiers and they're going to swing and they're going to fling their Scion of Draco at you. But you're like, Anointed Peacekeeper. Oh, you got Bombardiers in hand. I named that. And they go, okay, right, I can pay 5 mana. Now I couldn't deploy my Tarmogoyf as well. I have to pay all 5 mana for this. And they can't fling things at you because it's activated abilities as well, right?
Yeah, crushes Planeswalkers on the same, you name Oko and it's just dead in hand.
Exactly right. And these are just the lines of text. It's actually a 3/3 vigilance. And if you looked at this card like 2 years when it was printed, this card did not get play in Highlander when it was printed. It wasn't good. But that's because the format back then was very different. Right now, when you're doing battles over the initiative and maintaining your board whilst stealing the initiative, or maintaining your board while applying pressure, forcing them to have to try and get the initiative off you and make suboptimal attacks, a vigilant 3/3 is very good.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're talking about exactly right, when we're talking about initiative and monarch, being able to, I've got 3 exalted spells on my list as well. So being able to just, bash for 4 or 5 and still be able to play that double role of like, I'm going to protect myself against a haste threat, and there are a lot of haste threats. It's super relevant, super relevant. And yeah, Anointed Peacekeeper won me a game. Exactly that. Opponent spent 5 mana. They were in the tank for a while. Spent 5 mana to broadside Bombardiers. And they just played it and said, Bombardiers kill you, fling this, kill you. And I sort of went, blocks? And they went, no, fling before blocks. And I was like, we'll go to blocks.
You don't have 2 mana available.
Yeah. So there's a bit of gotcha factor there as well. I mean, the more people play with it, the less you'll get them. But yeah, the information's great. It just fits that role. It's kind of like Thalia, like it's punchy and it also disrupts. It's a bit hate berry, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're interested, read Beckett's tournament report. He'll talk about some instances where Palantir of Orthanc is good and not good. In instances of I don't know if you talked about Flage. Did you talk about Flage much in that report?
Flage was okay. I got to cast it to destroy a planeswalker, the new Ajani, the 2 mana 1/2 that flips into a planeswalker. So that was handy. And my opponent did concede when I cast it from bin. And I also had I remember when Uro first got printed, and it was so annoying because it was so difficult to cast to deal with cleanly. And the cleanest way to deal with it in Highlander was to Swords to Plowshares it. But because they had the gain 3, they gain 9 life, and it's just like that's life is, as we know, it's not something you care too much about your opponent gaining life, because if you can get the board, then it chips away very, very quickly. But my opponent Swords to Plowshare my flag, and yeah, I went up to 29. And it was relevant. It was having that much life was relevant. But no, I didn't cast it quite enough. I think I need a little bit more time to analyze the flag. I boarded it out essentially against any time they're not going to have a dork or something boltable. Then I don't want it in my deck. So
yeah, if it's going to face, it's probably the wrong card to be in your deck. You want to have some, Collector Roof or something. You want to have something that actively interacts with what they're doing.
absolutely, you want to add its best, and at its best, it's hitting creatures and planeswalkers, not the face.
And it's currently, we're both currently main decking this card because one, we want to see how it plays out. We're both very high on it. Because if you think of it like Uro was a card that we were instantly like, the moment it was printed, we're like, okay, this is in every single deck we're always going to play. Let's play it as long as possible before it gets pointed. And it took about a year or so for it to actually get its 2 points. Maybe it was longer than that. But if you look at people's reaction to Flage at the moment. They're not so high on it because it doesn't draw a card. But if you really think about Flage in the current meta, would you like to draw a card, or would you like to remove a permanent that's on the board? And generally, you're going to want to kill a mana dork, or you're going to want to, kill a anointed peacekeeper, right? You're gonna want to kill something.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that it's more likely to be dead in hand, but would lightning helix be dead in your hand? I mean, do you know what I mean? Like lightning bolt, these effects like that, they're not really dead in hand. You can delay it. Now, at 3 mana, you do have to delay it a little bit. But the other good thing about the Flag is the escape. And if you have a look at my deck, there's nothing else that uses and the graveyard is a great resource, And I think when we were discussing Sav, you said, back in the day, you'd have at least one Tasigur or a Gurmag or both. Not because you're playing Thought Scours, just because it's almost free to have at least one, because it's very easy to get 4 or 5 cards in the bin without trying. It's pretty hard to get 10 cards in the bin without trying. But you almost get like one free delve or escape spell that you can do without trying, and that's the Tarmogoyf logic, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. And we've got the other element of escape, and that is the deck is specifically built to just randomly luck sack something into the bin. We don't have other delve synergies or things that are going into the graveyard being benefits other than boosting a Tarmogoyf. But randomly, if you mill Flage with Palantir of Orthanc, if you surveil it with Lush Portico, these are opportunities for you to just randomly get some value. Same with Territorial Karvu. There are ways to just chuck it in the bin for now, and then later on you just cast it for its best half, the big Titan half.
Yeah, absolutely. I did reanimate. I did have a play where I flagged the face, reanimated, flagged the face for the win as well, which
Yeah.
was a nice little 4 mana kill you, and obviously you don't lose any life to the reanimate. But yeah, Palantir, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it in. I gave it a try. Very good.
Before we talk about Palantir, just correct me if I'm wrong. You can swing with broadside bombardiers post combat. You can play the Flag, 3 damage to them, fling it to them for 5, and then you could technically escape it if you had that much mana. But
yeah, I didn't get to live that dream, but I was looking forward to something like that. But I got to live some pretty good broadside bombardier dreams, including swing with him, and then my opponent didn't see the maths because I only had 1 mana. So I had nothing else to fling, and then I had 1 mana to reanimate the Generous Ant and fling 8 to the face for lethal. So I got to live some pretty good dreams. I didn't get to fling my Scion of Draco, unfortunately.
one day.
But
Yeah, Palantir sounds like the kind of card, as you're saying, you started saying before, that it sounds perfectly placed as a sideboard card.
yeah, I mean it's annoying because it's not quite impactful enough. I like the card's quite good by itself. It just does not fit what the deck's trying to achieve at all.
Yeah, this would be great in like a show and tell type deck where you're just like, hey, you thought I was show and telling you? Here's my Palantir, and now I'm milling myself, and you get to. Did you choose the 15 damage from Emrakul or not? We don't know. Like it really excelled in those kind of decks that do have like a tempo-y or control or combo type element. Palantir is not really a mid-range card, and it's certainly not an aggro card. Like we are technically aggro mid-range deck.
I think like you got to think worst case scenario, they elect you to mill the first time, and you're probably not going to get any sort of you could do 4 or 5 damage. I mean, I'm curious what the average CMC is. There's 2 scries, not irrelevant, but let's say you do like 4 damage. Well, just casting like a Peacekeeper that's going to swing twice is already doing more than that. And then you got to think, how good is this spell as a Jane Day Tomb every turn? Like just draw a card every turn. It's pretty good. It's good with the scry, but it is drawing at the end step, which is a significant difference between drawing in your upkeep or in your draw step. at the start of turn. And yeah, like this is a deck that doesn't have counter spells. It doesn't have a lot of instant speed interaction. Drawing a snuff out or a misstep or a sword's bolt is pretty strong. But otherwise, really, or a ley line, otherwise, really, you're not very likely to be able to leverage multiple cards in hand and inundate your opponent in card advantage. That's not what this deck's trying to achieve. And a control deck, you're right, does that a lot better.
But if it's in the sideboard, it would come in for those matches where you go, oh, I'm a creature deck. I'm like 30 plus creatures. They're gonna try and bring in all that creature removal, and you go Palantir. That's where it's like, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I did live the dream and flip Scion at one stage. And it's kind of reminds me of like a price of progress in, sort of like, yeah, I didn't really impact the board at all. And it came at a weird time because, like you might fire blast, you're playing burn, you fire blast someone right at the end when you've tapped out and they've got 3 life left and you just throw your last 2 lands at their face for 4 damage. You don't get to choose when the damage happens. And so, like, yes, on the surface, 12 damage for 3 mana is like, I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? But that's 12 damage at the worst possible time, 12 damage that can be managed by your opponent, and then it's kind of done. It's not this lasting, like, oh, now I need to quickly find an answer for this. They don't need to find an answer for Palantir ever. And that's what breaks people's backs in Magic is, gee, I need to find an answer for this in the next 3 cards. That's never the case with Palantir.
Yeah, it's a very weird browbeat. Normally people giving your opponent decisions and allowing them to make that choice is normally bad for you because they choose the thing that's most beneficial to them. With Palantir, sometimes they have enough information to know the right decision for them, which that first time, yeah, it's always correct to just mill. I don't want you to have cards early. And late game, oh, it's just correct to give them cards because I can't afford the damage. But right in the middle, it's quite hard. So they don't have all the information.
It's a
So
lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
yeah, I like the card, and it is absolutely a Highlander staple, just not a staple in this deck. It's more specifically potentially a sideboard staple.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I added it after the Eagles. You can see just how high this CMC is. We've got 4 6 drops, a 5 drop, plenty of 4 drops. The Scion is obviously just can be a free win. You got Leyline as well, which is another like it's a 1/2 drop, but it's got that inflated CMC. Same with Snuff Out. So you got a lot of inflated CMC in the deck, which was the logic to adding it in. But I think I probably will cut it or move it to the sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
One of my other new cards was the Death Greeter's Champion.
Yeah. And then we'll talk a little bit about Sock's deck.
Yeah, Death Greeter's Champion was pretty good. Still feels like probably the worst card in the list. And I think I'll add it to the maybe board. I recommend trying it out. It can feel pretty good to win combat against other initiative or mid-range decks where you can't quite swing in successfully, and then this guy just lets you do it because you can always trade well, and you're most likely they're not going to be able to block it. It impacts the board straight away. It's fine as a 3-mana 3/2 double strike. And every now and even against decks that don't play creatures, like a non-creature combo deck, being able to go, put the +1 counter on my Tarmogoyf and swing you for 10, like that's a pretty strong thing to be doing. And that's something you really could be doing on turn 3, bashing in for 10 or something after that. So it can really like cut life totals down. And the dash is cool because you can kind of do it in the very, very late game when you've got no mana left. So I think I'm going to keep trying it, but it's definitely not a must play. It's not like Bombardiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. It's Cube All-Star, isn't it? It's really, really strong in Cube.
Yeah, it is strong in Cube, but that's where I discovered it.
Nice. And let's jump over to we'll jump over to the tournament results as well. I will bear with me with my technology. All right. let's jump over to the rest of the results. So as we can see here, you can go online and we'll link to this report so you can see all the actual deck lists. The tournament top 8 was really, really diverse. You've got a mud deck, a shops type of deck. There were two tempo decks. The prowess deck plays a little bit more like a combo deck, but otherwise is still about tempo and protecting the queen and having a threat that you turn sideways and try and deal them a bunch of damage. But it kind of almost has that infect style combo off type finish. This is the only probably pure mid-range deck. We're kind of like aggro mid-range. Tom Clift was on an Omnath deck, and anytime you see Omnath, it's usually like a really good example of a value-based mid-range deck. Flash Hulk, excellent combo deck. If you want to see more of that, go look at the deck, and then I dare you to try and figure out what the Hulk piles are. Like without any knowledge, if you've never seen Flash Hulk before, I dare you to try and figure it
Well,
out.
I used to play Flash Rock a while ago. Do you think I'd be able to pick it with my like 2016 Highlander brain?
Your 2016 Highlander brain will be dwarfed by the printings of the last 3 years. Some of which come from the Lord of the Rings set. Some
Right.
come from like a cat being baked in an oven. It's very,
It
very
used to be pretty convoluted, where you had to get body double and Viscera Seer or Carrion Feeder, and then
yeah. It's nowhere. It's so
do
strange.
it do it again just to get one extra mana to get Wild Cancel, and then Revelike it back to get one extra mana, and then or one extra CMC's worth, and then you'd Malira Redcap them to death. That was the combo.
And yeah, all of those old combos use the graveyard, and now Flash Hulk can win without the graveyard, and
Wow.
it's really, really powerful.
Welcome to 2024.
Well, I know it's a different beast altogether. Zach was on basically a bunch of combos in an Orzhov shell, which is really, really cool. So go check that out. If you want to play a combo deck that doesn't need blue mana and doesn't need like blue duels, this Orzhov deck is really cool.
Yeah, he designed it himself, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Zach's always brewing something in the black, white, red colors, somewhere Mardu, some subset of the Mardu colors. And then let's just have a look at Sock's deck, because we've talked about it a lot in our private chat, the AE private chat. So just a quick couple of things I want to point out about this deck. So let's see. I want to point out the fact that this is a Doomsday deck. It's a Doomsday deck that has 2 lines to victory. And this is something that Sock and I were discussing is a real innovation, because usually Doomsday decks are either Doomsday with the Thassa's Oracle win, because Thassa's Oracle provides you with the fewest number of pass the turn Doomsday piles, i.e. the largest number of win on the spot piles. Whereas, the old school stuff like Laboratory Maniac required you to pass the turn because you couldn't quite get through 5 cards. You couldn't get to the 6th card, but Thassa's Oracle doesn't require that.
It was also susceptible to kill spells. Exactly. Creature kill spells.
It's susceptible to literally every kill spell on the planet, right? A 2/2, blue 2/2. But then you've got the other breed of decks that sometimes play Doomsday, depending on the version of it, and those are the Storm decks. So these are decks with Tendrils of Agony trying to generate 10 Storm and kill your opponent. So Sock's innovation that we were discussing, which is really unique, is using the Storm shell of Black Lotus, eschewing Thassa's Oracle entirely, which is like egregious, but then still winning via Doomsday through a different Doomsday pile. So this is really, really cool. So looking at the points, Black Lotus, Mystical Tutor, Tinker, and Gush. And normally you'd look at that and you'd be like, that's no deck that I know, right? Like not Storm, right? But it is technically Storm, because you can win with a Storm Doomsday pile, which I'll tell you in a second. But it also has the primary game plan, which is winning via Doomsday into Jace. So we can't change this one. All right. No, you can't change this on. Sorry, everyone at home. But it's Jace is relatively simple. Don't worry about any of the other text. All right. It's Laboratory Maniac for 4 mana, 1 more mana, i.e., if your deck is empty and you try to draw a card, you win the game. That's a static effect. But the +1 ability is mill someone for 2. Yeah, it's Sword Scour. Mill someone for 2, and you draw a card. So, to tell you why this is actually really innovative, is normally a Doomsday win. So I played a lot of Storm, and you can go and check out my Storm deck. I'll link my Storm deck somewhere. It's similar to this, but it's a less cantrip focus, and it's actually Jund Splash Blue. But the standard Doomsday pile for a Storm player is you'll go, your 5 cards are Black Load, Brainstorm, right? Brainstorm's always on top, and you need to have a cantrip to get into it. But everyone knows that if you're casting Doomsday, if you don't want to pass a turn, you need to draw the first card. So you've got some kind of cantrip, you've got some way to draw an egg or something that just lets you draw a card. So the pile is Brainstorm, and then 3 cards, which you will see, all of them. And those 3 cards are Black Lotus, Dark Ritual, and Yawgmoth's Will. So you cast Doomsday, and you go, okay, cantrip, Brainstorm, draw those 3 cards, generate 5 mana off Black Lotus, Dark Ritual, cast Yawgmoth's Will. Then with the Yawgmoth's Will, play the Black Lotus to make blue, and then you cast your Dark Ritual again to make more black, and then you cast your Brainstorm, and that will brainstorm you through the 2 cards that you just put back. Doesn't matter what the 2 cards are. And the last card in the Doomsday pile is Tendrils of Agony. And you can generate your Storm. You have a lethal kill. It's a very standard Storm Doomsday pile because you have access to Black Lotus. So the problem with that is Storm finds that really hard to do on a low number of resources. Storm is a resource-heavy deck. A Storm deck that doesn't have 7 cards in hand will find it harder to win the game, which is why you spend so much time in Storm trying to generate 7 cards in hand via Galvanic Relay, Wheel of Fortune, etc., etc. So Sock went, well, if the advantage of Storm is that we have Yawgmoth's Will and Black Lotus, and no other deck kind of does this, that's a Storm thing, Yawgmoth's Will, Black Lotus, but it doesn't have the resources to generate an early Doomsday kill. So he's got an alternative Doomsday kill. So when he's low on resources, has not enough cards, and needs to Doomsday, he casts Doomsday with Gush, Jace, and Black Lotus, because he doesn't have Thassa's Oracle, so he has access to Black Lotus. So with his Gush, he gets to play the land drop from the blue mana that he's bounced back, which generates 1 blue, and then you've got your 3 from Black Lotus. You play Jace, and Jace mill yourself 2, draw the 0th card in your deck, and you win the game. So it's a really low number of resources required to Doomsday off. And you can't do that in a Thassa's Oracle Doomsday deck because you can't afford Black Lotus in terms of points and also money, right? but you can't afford that in points. So his deck is kind of like this new breed of Storm, Laboratory Maniac Doomsday, old school Doomsday, mean deck Doomsday combined into one. And of course, you can tinker into Bolas' Citadel and win via Storm. You can do so many other things that the deck does, like Beseech the Mirror into Tinker into Bolas' Citadel, or whatever. You can do whatever you want in the Storm manner, or you can do it in the Doomsday approach.
There's so much overlap, isn't there, between the 2 combo decks? Really,
really good. And note that the Doomsday pile that I said for Storm, which is Brainstorm, Black Lotus, Dark Ritual, Yawgmoth's Will, and Tendrils of Agony, the standard Storm Doomsday pile. I'd say I've built that Doomsday pile 95% of the time I've played Storm and cast Doomsday. It's a very, very common one. That requires the graveyard. But Sock's Gush version, Gush, Black Lotus, Jace, does not require the graveyard. And that's really key in post-board games where people have brought in graveyard hate against the Storm deck. So
I think the thing about playing two distinct combos, and like you just said, with ways to play around, graveyard head, etc., is when you're playing against it, you don't know what they're going to go for because they're just playing they're playing LED and Yordmost, and you're saying, well, which one are they going? Even now I can't tell. Even mid combo, I can't tell which one they're going for because they're just playing like combo-is, preordains and dark rituals and stuff. These are cards that overlap, and it can be really difficult to tell. Who's keeping in their Swords to Plowshares for Labman post-board against this deck? No one.
Yep, everyone.
Even if you know about it, who's doing it? Everyone's got stifles for the Thassa's Oracle because they all expect you to be on Oracle.
Yep. And then they have done the math and they're like, wait, I saw a Black Lotus game one, and they're thinking, where's the Thassa's Oracle? Right. And yeah, you're so right. I think the largest number of sideboard games I've won playing Storm have been with Sheldred. Like the number of times they take out all their removal, they bring in all this hate, and I just go, turn one Sheldred and just pass a turn. And they're like, oh, trying to figure out a way. When they finally answer it, they're like, oh, I built up enough critical mass now, and now Storm off and Tendrils you for 6 and it's enough.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can I also just point out, I think the original creator of this isn't Sock. He's I'll make sure I reach out to Sock and we'll post the creator's name, Jack something or other. So we'll make sure that we give kudos to Jack for inventing it. But I'm sure Sock's made his own, tweaks and changes.
Sock's innovation is the Black Lotus approach. So the original deck that Sock used as a framework was a Thassa's Oracle deck, and then he's gone and done the Black Lotus and then made the shell around Black Lotus instead of Thassa's Oracle. The other one is it's like can win via Tendrils, but uses the Thassa's Oracle as the primary win con.
Well, I think the guy who made it didn't own, like you said, didn't own a Black Lotus.
Own Black Lotus.
So yeah. he sort of had two lists. One where he's like, oh, I like this with Lotus, but this is not the list I play. So he's put a lot of his thought into the non-Lotus list because he doesn't own it. One other cool line, can I say? Basically, it's not too hard once you resolve Citadel. Like you're gonna win when you resolve Citadel. But there is a cool line with Noxious Revival where you can keep putting Doomsday back on top, and then with the Citadel, and then casting the Doomsday, and then putting a new 5 on. And you might think, great, yeah, it loops because you can keep putting Noxious Revival in, but I'm losing life. But of course, one of those is Lotus and Tendrils. So you're gaining all this life off the Tendrils anyway. So you actually can go infinite Storm and just keep looping. But it's kind of this or that because you're going to win with Citadel, 99 times out of 100 anyway. But it is a cool little loop, infinite loop there. That's why the revival's on top.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And Sock is a huge fan of Limdor's Vault. I got to get on this,
it's a beautiful card. Gorgeous.
I keep going, I don't have enough slots and I just can't justify Limdor's Vault. I'll probably win more if I play Limdor's Vault. It's just
one raw combo, isn't it?
It's just raw combo. It's going to set up.
All the Flash Hawk decks are playing it. Or a lot of the Flash Hawk decks are playing it.
And Fast Bond as well. Also great with synergy with Bolus of Citadel. You never get stuck with not being able to play the lands. And Sock's also got his Zero and Orb as well.
Yeah, the Zero and Orb is great for gaining life off the Citadel. So
it's almost impossible to lose when you got the Zero and Orb Fast Bond. The Zero and Orb Fast Bond Bolus of Citadel.
Yeah, it's a great little combo. And it's still good even without the Fast Bond. You put it on top as part of your Doomsday pile. It'll cost you 0, so you cast it straight off. So now your pile's 4, again 6 life, sack 3 lands, and you can cast the rest of your the rest of your 4 cards off the Doomsday. So yeah, it's a fantastic list and it's so powerful. And like, yeah, there is a lot of hate. There's plenty of great cards that shut it down. Thalia just shuts it down. But because it's so all in, it's so quick. You're just asking the question. You say, well, yeah, you're probably gonna win, but do you have it in your opening hand? And even if you do, is it a 1 drop? Is it a 2 drop? Deafening Silence does it. But so many games, Sock won when we were testing, when I just had land dork out.
Yeah, you're like, okay, you feel really stupid then, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
he cast Scheming Symmetry. Oh, I get to put my Thalia on top. Doesn't matter.
the number of times, so just for reference, so this is a Storm deck that I play. The number of times that I've lost because of a main deck Thalia and just gone, I guess I lose. I'm on these main deck mainly because, yeah, Collective Brutality is flexible and it answers Collector Roof, Thalia, the main deck ones, and it also checks to see if they've got protection in their hand. And Veil of Summer forces your way through Thoughtseize when needed on turn 1, but Dress Down's flexible. So, these two are really flexible. These aren't flexible.
Well, I think, yeah, you're slowing your game down by a smidgen to play around a pretty wide swathe of potential hate pieces. But I think the important thing to note is it's not that Sock's deck is just going la la la, pretending that Thalia doesn't exist. He's just gone so 100% speed that it is probably just half a turn faster than yours on average. And his logic is I'm just gonna win on turn 2 or 3 before you set up. And on average, I think I can do that, is what he's saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's currently, if I was rocking up to a tournament with Storm, I would play Sock's deck. I think that, for the version that I play, I have flexibility in the form of wishes for the sideboard for our tutors. And it allows you to, access to main deck culling ritual.
Sock didn't even we kept saying, Sock, put Abrupt Decay in. Just Abrupt, it's so catch-all. He was even hesitant to put in Abrupt Decay.
Yeah. He just wants to go like, boom, I got you. Like turn 1, Mystical Tutor, Doomsday on top. And now my turn, Dark Ritual, Doomsday, Brainstorm,
Well,
whatever.
you've got Song of Creation as well, if you want to just show Song of Creation.
Yeah, I'm a
That's
Storm deck, so here you go. And this is why you'll see, like, I have 16 rituals in the deck. Everything generates mana and is incredibly low mana cost. And so basically, you'll just try and get one of these big draws out as quickly as possible. And you'll almost inevitably win the game. There are times where you'll pass the turn with a Song of Creation. There are times, but it's almost, it's not really, it's not that common. So you can get one of these out usually within the first, 2 turns off your rituals, 2 to 3 turns off your various rituals, or you can just draw a really good hand. You just have a really good hand with Black Lotus and Lion's Eye Diamond or something, and you'll just go ham and you cast your 7 spells. You cast all your spells from all your rituals, and then you'll wish for Empty the Warrens and then just play 16 goblins turn 1. That's something that's quite common play. I'm, in terms of my points, I'm really high on Urza Saga for Storm. I think that this is a discussion I had with Sock back and forth. If you can fit Urza Saga into your Storm deck, then you absolutely should. And if you can't fit it in, then you should try and find a way to fit it in, because it's just that good. It's phenomenal. When you look at the number of artifacts, we run like 14 to 16 artifacts. You can so many times play out your artifacts and play your Urza Saga and then make 2 7/7 machines, and then they're like, oh, and then they try and deal with the 7/7s, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll crack all this mana now, and I'll Tendrils you for 10.
Well, the Lotus is so integral. Lotus, finding Lotus LED just switches on so many big wins.
And that's why I classify Urza Saga as a tutor, because I will absolutely 100% play Urza Saga turn one. Like I'm not going to try and go for value. If I play it turn one, it means I get my Black Lotus on turn 3, and I usually win on turn 3. So that's the plan. But
and it
right
switches
now,
on that alternate. Yeah, I mean, just two, like you said, 2/7/7s can shut down a mid-range deck.
yeah, that's my approach to it. But I haven't tweaked this for the current version for new the new metagame and events, where I'd try and probably put Portal to Phyrexia into the sideboard. That's a really good one. And I've taken out the Doomsday win because of the fact that it most of the lines use the graveyard to win with Doomsday, because I don't have Mind's Desire in the main. You can do Doomsday piles with Mind's Desire, but that's a whole nother video. And now that we have Tinker at 1, there's not quite enough slots to fit the Doomsday card in, and Tinker will allow you to win on turn 1 more consistently than Doomsday allows Storm to win on turn 1. Whereas Sock's deck, a dedicated Doomsday deck with a Jace, Win, and Gush, can definitely win on those early turns like turn 2.
Yeah, big time. Well, it's fascinating to see them sort of next to each other, and see, it just makes you check yourself and check your sideboard, because you are not beating these deck without sideboard card. You are not just playing a fair game and thinking like, oh yeah, like they might storm off on turn 5 or something, and I might be able to kill them. They are consistently going to beat you before you set up, unless you do something to interact with them.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that that's probably the critical difference in why I would sleeve up Sock's Storm deck over mine in a local meta, because generally, as a combo deck, for all-in Storm, for me on any kind of all-in Storm deck like Song Storm and so on, Song of Creation, one piece of interaction from them will shut all of my avenues down, except for Urza Saga. Which is why I like that point so much. But like, I can't Doomsday without storming. So if they have Thalia, I have no Doomsday line that allows me to storm unless I go Doomsday, Abrupt Decay, and then I have my combo afterwards. Like, I have to actively interact with their piece. Whereas Sock's Doomsday win, which is so innovative with that kind of Jace win using the Lotus, he can play through a single hate piece I'm not going to say easily, but way easier than I can. I can't. Once this is out, I must answer the hate piece, and then I can win. But he doesn't actually need to answer. He can find a way to play through it, and empty his deck and win with a Jace, quite relatively easily.
Yeah, well, it was a joy to play against, especially Sock's pimped out version.
Nice. So good. We'll have to try and get him to take a photo of it, of the actual deck spread out.
It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful deck. So do you have any closing comments about the event? And
just that it was so much fun, and I think I said in one of my previous articles about when you're in the game, when you're in the event, you have to play like winning is the most the most important thing. I'm gonna do, absolutely have to win. That's the benchmark. But then once it's all over, you can sort of take a step back and review it holistically. And I did exactly that. I was in it to win it. But then afterwards, once I had that first sip of beer at the RSL, I was able to go, this is a really good result. And, it's fun to have all 3 of us in the top 8 representing SA, and it's fun to be back in. I mean, this is what we play for, those trips into state. It's just an absolute blast. If you don't do it already, I know it costs a lot of money, and you can think, oh, is this worth it? It takes a whole weekend. It's just so much fun. You'll have memories for a lifetime. So I really recommend going out and trying some interstate events.
absolutely. And I think it's really cool being able to see the different perspectives, because Beckett's entering these events as haven't played Highlander for a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
And then boom, hit the scene, apply all of your external knowledge from Cube and everything else into Highlander, and then run with it and go like big event, big event, big event, big finish, top 8 finish, top 8 finish, top 8 finish.
I'm
Which is awesome. And then in the meantime, in those like year and a half, I've been like, play all the local events, think a lot about the format, do lots of theory crafting, do lots of play testing, do lots of discussion, but like no major events. It's the different phase of life.
Yeah.
So, like you hit 40 and you're like, okay, I've had like 3 work trips in 2 months. I think it's time to just veg out for this weekend. And so my competitive mindset, not there, and I'm living it through you.
I'm happy to, yeah, I'm
You can
happy to
like give the
be
advice. Yeah,
the
I've tested this, try this out.
yeah.
But my headspace isn't quite in the phase of life for competitive events.
Well, you were right about the surveil land. I'll say that the surveil land was good. So yeah, very happy for you to live vicariously through me.
That's it. I'm living vicariously through. The one thing that I will say about traveling interstate, because we've been, like you said, been doing it for like 10 years now. When you travel and you plan to travel for the event is not the be all and end all. Right? You could go there and you can top 8. You go there, you can win it. You could go there and flunk out. But primarily, go there thinking, okay, I'm going to play my hardest. I've play tested for this. I've practiced. I'm ready to go. I got the deck that's the right choice. But go there for the experience. Go there for the bonding with the others from your state that have gone to travel together. Go there for the car ride that you have this banter on for the 8 hours on the way up. Go there for the tournament debriefing afterwards. Go there for the experience of like bombing out and then seeing your teammate have a win in, and then following your teammate and then watching their quarterfinals match, and then like getting the flutter, and you watch their semifinals match, like going as a team and going as a group. That experience is a seminal experience that you will just remember forever, regardless of whether you win or not. You won't go home and remember, I remember that time where in round 3, I made this play and this thing happened. You'll go there and you remember like how much fun it was and the experience, right? It's the cherry on the top if you get a good performance. And it turns out this time, 3 Adelaide players and 3 top 8s, that's like a great cherry.
Yeah, well, you summed it up perfectly. So
nice. Well, that brings us to a close. So thank you very much for joining us on our debrief session, letting you in a little bit behind the curtains about how Adelaide Eternal kind of, banters and
the
chats.
think tank.
The think tank, and then we come in with a different deck or the same deck with like slight revisions. Why did you choose that card? Maybe we'll see lots of people on Anointed Peacekeeper after after this video. We'll see. Yeah, it's a good card. Don't sleep on it.
Worst case, it's secret tech that I'll keep.
Well, we'll just keep profiting from it, right? So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in another video later down the track. Enjoy some Highlander and Magic action.
See you out there.